Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. And today I had the original rookie, my daughter, Jessie.
Hi. Excited to be here.
Get ready for this, boys and girls. We're on episode number 264. The name of today's podcast is For Anyone Squeamish About Talking to Real Estate Sellers About Doing Creative Deals Confidently. Oh, there's that big word, confidently. Mm-hmm. Here's the description. By now, you know there's gold in them there hills. But how do you get instant credibility with real estate sellers when talking about making monthly payments? Hang on a second. I forgot to do something here. Hang on, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so the name of the title, again, is For Anyone Squeamish About Tracking. I'm all messed up now. For anyone squeamish about talking to real estate sellers about doing creative real estate deals confidently. By now, you know there is gold in them there hills. But how do you get instant credibility with real estate sellers when talking about making monthly payments until paid off? You know it is crucial to arrange your conversations with sellers correctly so they agree with your terms, but are not quite sure how to flip the seller from getting all the cash in 30 days to, how about you become the bank and let me make monthly payments? Without trying to manipulate the seller's motivation, or worse, losing their interest and ghosting you. By now, you must even start thinking only the best salesy folks can make these deals. And that is not you. But what if I told you there are some simple yet smart ways to get these sellers off their pedestal and stop looking down on you? Even better, use ordinary, everyday talk to sellers so sellers stick to you like glue and help you do the transaction, even if it is your first time doing a deal. This is a perfect podcast for squeamish feelings about talking to sellers and will be like Pepto-Bismol for an upset stomach. So buckle up while we blow you out of your boots. A hell of a description, huh?
I love it.
All right. So just a little bit of housework here. In your description, wherever you're watching us or listening to us, or if you're on, whatever channel, in the description, there's actually a link to a free email course and contest that I actually go over all of this stuff with all the links and everything in it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a contest, Jessie, and I'm going to teach or coach people by email so that they can get out there and start talking to sellers. And then I'm going to take the top 3 listeners that send me a support ticket and tell me that they're in the standings. And we are going to take the top 3 and we're going to interview them, or I'm actually going to coach them on this podcast. So it's going to be a 45-minute to a 60-minute coaching session with me while they were in the house or talking to sellers. Okay, so if you just go into the link, into the descriptions and click on the link, you can register for that. And when you register for that, I'm going to give you a 14-day crash course on how to do your first deal. And it is probably one of the best things I think I've ever written. So there you go. So we normally record this just like we are today. We record this before. We normally do it Thursday mornings at 9:30, but Pete's on sabbatical, so I'm kind of like doing it whenever I have time for people like yourself and Sean come on here. So just make sure. Thanks, Mona. Thanks, Mona. She says awesome. So make sure you're subscribed to us so that when we pop up on our live feed, you know that we're live. Okay. And if you're in Facebook or if you are in YouTube, you can put in the comments any questions while we're going along, and I will answer them questions if you're with us live. Okay? So, first, as I said, welcome, Jessie.
Thank you.
So, I want my listeners to know Jessie's my oldest daughter of two and mother of my two precious grandchildren. They are definitely the best gift she's ever given me in life.
Yeah, they're pretty sweet.
Yeah, they're awesome. But before she was married and had children, worked with me on deals while I traveled the country 40 weeks per year. I actually owned an automotive repair shop for 27 years, and when I sold it and closed it, I actually went to work for a company that consulted automotive repair shops. At the time, I think, Jessie, you were what, 19 years old?
Yeah, I would say 18, 19, between there, yeah.
And so while I was gone, Jessie was running those transactions for me at 18 or 19 years old. So it wasn't that hard, was it?
It really wasn't. I mean, the hardest part, to be honest, I think was when I went to the bank with the big fat checks and they were like, you can't deposit these because they were afraid of the numbers. That was the hardest part.
Yes. All right. And I'll never forget the day that Jessie told me how much she hated cold calling and working with rude sellers. Yep. That was a wake-up call for me.
Yes.
Okay, so Mona is saying that she clicked on the link and it bumped her out of the video. Yeah, that's okay, Mona. You can go back to the video once you're done. Okay? So, or just save the link to your phone. So, anyway, so I remember that day. I was a little bit taken back, and because Jessie is probably, and I'm not saying this because she's my daughter or because she's here, anybody that knows Jessie, and you can go find her on Facebook, anybody that knows Jessie, she's one of the kindest people I know. She usually doesn't say bad about anybody unless she's royally pissed off, which is like, I can remember that like a handful of times in my life, in her life. Okay. So for her to say something like that, it was like, whoa, where did that come from? I never heard that come out of her mouth, right? Which is why I have her today, because I think she has the same perspective as most of our listeners today, right? So she has done some real estate. I think you have a couple of jobs, like two jobs or three jobs, a couple of jobs anyways. You always have a couple of jobs.
Yeah.
Plus a family.
Yep.
And your kids are like what, 3 and 1 or 3 and a half?
18 months. Yeah.
And Jessie won't tell you this, and she'll probably give me hell later on when I say this, but her second child was a COVID baby. So she was born right in February of 2020. So that means that her youngest really doesn't know what it's like to not have mom around.
Yep.
So she's a little clingy.
Yes.
And she's a little attention getter. And she knows it. She knows how to do it. She's an excellent actress to get attention. The point is that in that time period, you've done some real estate. Like there's a multifamily that we're doing right now, and you're getting ready to sell it, and there's a big fat check in there.
Yep.
Right?
That's true.
So, I mean, it is possible for anybody to do this. Now, it is a little bit of a fair advantage because you of all people, you, and in fact, you more than Peter, can pick up the phone and 99% of the time I answer.
Yep.
Right? Or if I don't, I call back right away.
Yep.
Which is a little bit different. It's a little bit of an edge for you. But I don't want anybody to think that that's what happened, especially after today's podcast. Okay. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to present to Jesse and all the rest of you who are listening what I think is probably the best way in the 20th century to learn how to do real estate transactions. And I kid you not, it is the best way in the 20th century to learn how to do deals. And if you listen to this podcast today and you still can't do deals, and you go to my email course and go through it, it's a 14-day course, which means within 14 days you can actually do a deal. And if you can't do that, then I may not be your guy. You might need to go somewhere and lay on a couch and have somebody talk to you. Because there's other things going on than real estate, okay?
Yep, that's true.
So, so this type of transaction is going to give you profits, and it's not going to have risk. And most of all, you're going to see how you can do it on your own schedule, because that's the biggest thing I run into with my private coaching clients is their schedule. Okay. I call it, it's got a name, it's new, it's got a name. I call it, you get paid to do, not know.
That's huge.
On Bill's Planet.
Yep.
So we're on Bill's Planet right now. And Jesse, she's my daughter and been around for 30 years, knows about Bill's Planet.
Yep. Planet Bill. It's an awesome place to be. It's a privilege to get to visit sometimes.
Now they think you're just blowing smoke up my dress.
No, it's true. Well, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a little rocky, but most of the time it's pretty fun.
John says, John, he's too funny. My schedule's always open. Has Bill opening?
It's true.
Anyway.
I have to say there's not many people when they call back, you drop what you're doing, you pick up. Yeah. Always, because this guy is busy. I say it all the time. I don't know how he does what he does. It's pretty crazy.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
But I want you to know two things. I want you to know that she has, even though we've been divorced for 20 years, she has an amazing mom. Mm-hmm. Her mom did a great job of raising her. Now, I was there, but we were divorced for 20 years. And since she was 8 or 9 years old, she was with her mom. But I will never forget the day when I told Jesse, this is not a democracy. This is my world, and you live in my world.
It's Bill's way or the highway is usually what the phrase was.
Sometimes. And I remember at a very young age, the two of them, her and Emma, which everybody knows Emma, I forced them and literally forced them for every visit they were with me, because Wednesday nights were their visits, to play Cash Flow Quadrant.
Yep.
And back then, the game wasn't as expensive as it is now, so I paid my $40 or $50 or whatever it was, and I wore that game out. To this day, I don't know where that game is, but I will tell you that even though they badgered me and they complained and threatened not to come visit me, to this day, both of my children know the difference between an asset and a liability, and they are both very good with money. So I am very proud of that, even though I went against the grain and I heard a lot of the human emotion and reaction and the complaints and the threats. It was well worth it all these years later.
I have to say that my friends used to stop inviting me over when they played Monopoly, because nobody ever wanted to play Monopoly with the Hawthorns, because all we would worry about are those assets and liabilities. And all of my friends, I'm 10 years old talking about assets and liabilities. Nobody wanted to play with me because I won every time.
and then you bring your husband now, and Emma's got a boyfriend, and they didn't realize that Monopoly has two games.
Mm-hmm.
So you start to play Monopoly, in our house anyways. You start to play Monopoly and you acquire the properties and the money. And then when it gets down and dirty and you're broke, then you go into game 2, which is negotiation.
Yeah.
And negotiating loans and options and subject to deals with a Monopoly board.
It's the Wild West.
and,
So true.
And even though we do it, the boyfriends and husbands are like, you can't do that. And I'm like, well, show me in the rules where you can. And we would win.
It's true.
All right. So you get paid to do, not know. Let me explain. Jesse, have you ever rented a place to live yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Did you sign a lease?
Yes.
Perfect. Then you're trained.
Woohoo! That was easy.
You already know how to do real estate and make money. And after today's podcast, and anybody that's listening, if you've ever signed a lease with a landlord, what I'm about to go over with you today is a laydown. It's a piece of cake because you already know what to do. It's really that simple.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's talk about some details. Is it possible you could text landlords, ask them if they would rent for a year or two and then sell to you?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, once they say yes, right, you could look at the place and strike a deal. I mean, you could do that this weekend.
Yep.
Okay. Then, once you get the deal, you advertise the deal on Flakebook as a house for sale with no bank qualifying. Right? So you're going to take this agreement that you made with your seller or your landlord, and you're going to assign it to your buyer and make money in between.
Brilliant.
Which, by the way, your buyer is buying, not being a normal renter. Is this making sense?
Yes.
So you don't need to have special words. You don't need to be salesy. You don't need to be a marketing genius. And I'm going to tell you where to go find these leads in a few minutes by the end of the podcast. You find this congregation of renters. Start sending them messages or texts every day saying, will you be willing to rent for a year or two and then sell to me? When somebody says yes, you make an appointment, you go out and look at it, just like you did when you did your original lease and when you rented your place, because almost everybody's done that. And you sign a contract with them. You make a deal and you sign a contract with them. Okay? Now realize the contract you're signing, you have no intention of executing it yourself, and you are going to tell your landlord, the new landlord, or the rent-own landlord, that you are going to be subleasing, and your buyer is going to be the one that's going to cash them out. So the obligations you're making are not for you. They're going to be passed on to your buyer. Okay? So think of this. Now, people right away cringe and tighten up, Jesse, because they think, oh, I got to be a landlord. I don't want to be a landlord. And I hear so many investors say that. So first of all, I want to make this very rude comment. Okay?
Yep.
There is no such thing as a bad tenant. There's bad landlords. So here's what happens. If you were a bad landlord and let a bad tenant in, shame on you.
Right.
If you were a bad landlord and let them get away with not paying you, shame on you.
It's
if you
true.
were a bad landlord and let them do damage and not know it, shame on you.
Yep.
Now, here's the reason why I say this. Let me ask you this. If you rent a car, will you be changing the oil, taking it to the car wash, and doing repairs?
Nope. Not my job.
No, right? But if you bought the car, would you do the oil changes? Would you wash it? And would you do the repairs?
Yeah, you have to.
Right? So this is what happens to our buyers. We make sure they know they own it.
Yeah.
And are only leasing until they qualify for a new loan.
Yeah, I think that rent to own is really, I mean, that's really what it is. It's such a crucial phrase because you really do own it. You're responsible for the lawn, right? The furnace blows up, that's on them, that's not on you. And as a landlord, I have to say one of the most challenging parts is that maintenance piece. Right. So it really, a deal like this really takes away so much sting out of these kinds of transactions. It's a brilliant strategy.
Right. So the point is that you're pre-qualifying them prior to. It's tough love in the beginning. Now, I happen to be, so I could say that, but I tell them I'm the big fat landlord. You're overpaying me until you get your mortgage because I overcharge them a couple $100 per month from what they can get their mortgage for. And it's an incentive for them to go get a mortgage. Right? But more importantly, my lease, which is not what you'll get right away, but you don't need that to start. My lease says, that they're going to cut the grass, they're going to plow the snow, they're going to change the batteries in the smoke detectors, they're responsible for the repairs. Now, obviously, if the furnace blows up and they can't afford to put a furnace in, often what I'll do is I'll put the furnace in, I'll pay for it, or get a loan or whatever and pay for it, okay? And then I'll add it to the price of their house. So if I got to put a furnace in for $5,000, then I'll add the $5,000 to their payoff. Right? Yeah. Or I'll go get a loan and make them pay me that loan every month. Okay, but the point is if they went in the house knowing that they're buying and not renting, just like the car, if they know they're buying and owning, they'll take care of it. But it's common sense that people that are going to spend $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 for a house, if they're going to buy it, they're going to take care of it. They don't want to destroy it. Okay. Absolutely. Now, sometimes they get to the end and they know they're going to leave and they don't do very nice things. But if we get enough deposit money, we have reserves to cover all that because we are going to get a 3 to 5% deposit from them because we're going to want to have that much money if we go get them an FHA mortgage anyways. So we don't want them in the house and have to chase them to get a mortgage and the deposit money. Okay?
Yeah.
So we're going to have a chunk of dough before they go in, right? So there's a cushion there. You're not coming out of your pocket with this money, right? Okay, so here's the trick. And this took me literally 18 years to figure out. And it's dumb, so it's okay if you send me a support ticket and tell me, you dumbass, I already know this part. I already know that it took me 18 years to figure this out. But that's okay because I'm sharing it with you today. Once you get them in the house and they're moved in, you have them apply for an FHA loan. Okay? And then get them turned down because they know they don't apply. So have them apply for the FHA loan. Get the list of the rejections of why they weren't approved. So get the laundry list of whatever it is, which, by the way, FHA is a government mortgage. It's seldom credit because the government doesn't look at credit as much as everything else. The government wants to put people in houses. Their goal is to have Americans own real estate, right? So they bend the rules quite a bit. So as soon as they're in, a month or 2 months after they're in, have them apply for the mortgage. An FHA mortgage. Just find a local mortgage broker in your area and have them apply. Get the list of oopses that they didn't get qualified for. Take that list and you can send them to my guy. His name is Stephen Robert, and he's at Bedrock Credit Restoration. And that's in Danbury, Connecticut. It's Bedrock Credit Restoration. And let him do his job. Because now you got a couple of years for him to fix it. which, by the way, if you're driving, don't crash. You can come back and listen to this later. Stephen's phone number is 203-279-8401. Stephen from Bedrock Credit Restoration, his office phone number is 203-279-8401. You can tell him I sent you if you want. It won't do anything other than he'll be like, oh, yeah, how is he? That's it. Okay. The point is this. You're going to tell your seller when you put them in, you're going to help them get qualified. That's how you help them get qualified, is you put them in for a mortgage, find out what the rejections are, and then over the course of the 2 years that you have, or a year and 8 months, you work on those things. Sometimes they have debt they got to pay. Well, tell them to make monthly payments for a year until the debt's paid off. But now you know what it is. So you got a better chance of them actually cashing you out. Okay? All right. So just so the message is really clear, if you have rented a place in the past, signed a lease, and lived there, what else do you need to know? You've already done this type of transaction. You've already got experience. You already dealt with the landlord. You don't need to have any slick words or be salesy. You don't have to go figure out how to be a real estate investor. You don't have to worry about raising funds. You don't have to worry about closing agents and lawyers and orchestrating a closing. You don't have to worry about pretending like you're a professional that's done it for 20 years and done 100+ deals like me. You could just tell them, this is your first deal. Could you help me? And that landlord or that seller, once you find the right one, a motivated one, will want that. So get this. Does this make sense so far, Jess?
Yeah, I think the best thing about these kinds of deals is, I think one of the things you talk about all the time is if it starts good, it ends good, right? So like, not only are you getting a good deal because you're the middleman who's collecting checks, but now you're helping somebody who doesn't qualify maybe for an FHA mortgage off the bat. And one thing that you always talk about is, I don't know if the statistic has changed, but only 19% of people are able to qualify for mortgage. So your market is much bigger on a rent to own versus all the realtors and the brokers who are fighting for that 19% of the market. So, it's good for you. You're helping other people. And when you have these deals that just work for everybody, it just makes it that much sweeter all around. That's what I love most about this deal.
Exactly. Now, I don't have this written down, but I've been talking to you the last couple of days about this deal that I have, right? So I'm kind of on a new swing with my career because I know times are coming that are going to be a little bit rougher than they have been, okay? So what I've been doing is I've been selling a few properties, my problem properties that I don't want, and I've been getting chunks of dough. So I'm thinking I'm going to hold those chunks of dough, and I'm going to go buy more properties when the market turns. Then I realized, wait a minute, I can increase my cash flow by just paying off my private notes, my mortgages. Not on all of them. I'm not going to pay off the subject to notes, but the private mortgages, I can pay them off because I'm paying 7 and 9% for those, right? So just to give you an example of what Jesse's saying, 3 years ago, I had one gentleman that I started off with one house, and before we ended up 2 weeks later, I ended up with 3. So I ended up with a 3-family in New Haven and two families in Meriden. So the two families in Meriden was under one mortgage. So I did one lease option. So I leased those properties from him with an option to purchase, and I gave him $100. Then I did a lease option with him in New Haven for the 3-family, and I gave him $100. Now I've been managing those properties. He went to Florida. I've been managing those properties. Every month I pay the rent to him. Every month I pay the water bills and the common electric bills. All the rents come to me. All the leases are in my name. Everything is there. So there's probably a property in New Haven. I decide, maybe I should get it appraised. Let me see what it's worth, because it's like one of my pains in the asses in my portfolio. And I recognize I'm spending too much time on it. Long story short, I get my guy, Dave, the realtor who's been on here before, and he appraises it, and I write a contract on it. And in a week, I'm closing with like $115,000 profit. Now, wait a minute. I collected on all three of those buildings, I collected a little over $2,000 a month positive cash flow. So let's just say that's for 3 years. Let's just say 2 years I get to keep that money. In the third year of that $2,000 a month, I put in maintenance and all. It's not that much, but let's just say that. So that means if for 2 years I collected $2,000 profit out of the 3 years, I made $48,000 already. All I gave was $100 deposit for the option and a rental agreement. So exactly what I'm telling you to do today can be big money. I did it with multifamilies, which, by the way, in the multifamily business, that's more common than it is in the single family business. Yep. Now, I've taken it a step further, which I was telling you, and I don't want to get too much into details in this deal, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the proceeds, the $100 and something thousand from the property in New Haven, and I'm going to take that money and I'm going to pay off the other two properties in Meriden. One I'm going to own free and clear, and the other one I've got the owner to agree to write me a $60,000 mortgage. But here's what happens. When I make the sale, I took all three mortgages out of his name. I put him free and clear and got him to write me a $60,000 mortgage at a very small percentage. I think like 5%. Okay. I did all of that. So I got a 2-family house that I'm going to own free and clear that's worth 200 and change. I have another one that's worth 200 and change that I'm going to own for 60,000. I did all of that with exactly what I'm telling you to do today. So it can be done.
Yes, it can.
Okay. See, get this, right? What you need to do is fix the most important real estate in the world. And that's between your ears. The real estate between your ears is messed up because you have attitudes and ideas that you think are true.
Yep.
So Monica has a question here. Let me just address that. So do you have wording protection for picking up the way you're doing upgrades, repairs on the property, or do you just lose that if you don't exercise the option? Okay, so Mona, I have a rule. This is a steadfast rule in my life. If you don't get a deed, you don't put money in the property. So if the property needs repairs, you aren't going to do a rent to own. You have to get a deed in your name to do repairs. Now, mind you, I'm going to be arrogant for a second, and I don't mean to be because this is an industry standard. Anything $5,000 or below is not considered a lot of money putting into a property. So a lot of other people, gurus will say, like Ron LeGrand, for example, says that you could put up to $5,000 into a house until you get a deed. To me, $5,000 is a lot of money. I usually don't do more than $1,000 or $2,000. I don't risk more than $1,000 or $2,000. What I do is I look at how much deposit money am I going to get from my buyer. So if I think I can get 10 grand for a $200,000 house, I'll put up to 50% of that money into the property if I have to, because I'll get it back from the deposit money. Okay, so I'm only putting the 5 grand up for a month, maybe 6 weeks. Okay, but for the most part, the rule is don't put money in a piece of real estate unless you're getting a deed. So the rent to owns, and if you're going to do what I'm going to tell you to do in a couple minutes, you're not going to run into handyman specials. Okay, because when I show you where to go look for these, which you already know how to do, I'm just going to point it out to you. What's going to happen is you're not going to find properties that need repairs. They already have repairs done. Okay, so let me know if that made sense, Mona. I'm going to keep going. Okay. So what you do is fix the real estate between your ears first. You do a rehab on that. You do a fix and flip on that. Okay, good.
It's the hardest fix and flip in the world, man.
Exactly. So, see, all you need to do is go where these landlords are trying to rent already. And that's what I'm talking to Mona about. See, what happens is you go to where these retail landlords are already. So they're already pretty properties. And you're going to want to do, see, when I'm talking about landlords, you're going to want to go look for single family houses. You're not going to go look for apartment buildings I do condos, but you're not going to look for that kind of stuff. Okay, you're going to look for single family houses mostly. And these sellers are already motivated to take monthly payments, right? But watch this now, Jess. Watch this. Listen to this carefully because this is huge for adjusting the real estate between your two ears. Your added value to somebody that's renting a single family house is you'll tell them, I'll buy it when the lease is over or cash them out. They don't have renters coming along saying, I'll buy it at the end of 2 years or within the 2 years. They don't have that. Right? So that proves that you're a buyer, not a renter. Right?
Yeah.
So now I'm going to use some language here that I don't want to spend a lot of time on, but it's called an accidental landlord. So suppose husband and wife are married, they got kids, and everything's hunky-dory, and they have a house. And lo and behold, something happens and they get a divorce or they're separated or whatever. And they both move out of the house. Or more to the point, we'll just say, because it's common, I don't want to be like say this wrong, but the woman gets the house because she's got the kids. Okay? She's got the house, she's living there, she's there for a year and a half, whatever. Girl meets boy, right? Next thing you know, they're dating. She's over there one night a week while mom's watching the kids. Next thing you know, it's 2 nights a week. Next thing you know, she moves in with him.
Yep.
And she's got this house.
Yep.
And maybe she owes too much money. Maybe there's a lot of reasons why she may not be able to sell it.
Right.
So what happens is she rents the place for the expenses. That's an accidental landlord.
That makes a lot of
It
sense.
could be just as simple as there's not a divorce. You got two people, they get married, they have no kids. All of a sudden they got 3 kids. It's too small. They buy a bigger house. They can afford the bigger house. They don't need to sell the other house to do it. And they move and they think they're going to sell that house and they don't sell the house. So now they got 2 mortgage payments.
Right.
They can afford both mortgage payments, but they want to relieve it.
Right.
So they can't sell it, so they'll rent it for whatever it costs them for the mortgage. That's an accidental landlord. There is a lot of those people out there. Okay? So you're going to find that person. And when you say to them, the added value is, I'll buy it at the end of my lease.
It's huge.
That's the added value because they don't have anybody. They don't have just regular renters coming along saying that. Right? After all, the landlord seller, now listen to this. This is key. This is what's going to make you above and beyond everybody else if you know this. And it's simple. The landlord seller is looking for someone ethical to take care of their property and pay on time. That's all they're looking for.
It's a tall order sometimes.
Right? And you can do that, right? So here's the crazy part. You and I are going to help him or her get that. So how hard is it to talk to this person that's looking for an ethical person to take care of their property and pay them on time? It's not that hard. Think about it. You're doing what you already know. You know how to rent. You know how to talk to landlords. You know how to sign a lease. You already know all that. So you get paid to do this, not know.
Right.
You don't have to get a 6-year Yale degree or Harvard degree to be somebody like me. Now, eventually you'll get there because you'll do some of these deals, 4, 5, 6, 10 deals. And if you're clever, you'll pay attention. You'll record yourself every conversation so you can listen to yourself, and you'll get better and better as you go because you'll be your best coach, right? So just record yourself talking to people and then listen to those recordings. And you'll have the best coach on planet Earth, you, right?
So true.
After you do a handful of these deals, you'll have experience talking to sellers. Once you have the experience talking to sellers, you'll start doing other deals, which is where you'll need expenses. But now pay attention to this. When you record yourself, you'll start listening to where you need help and where you don't need help. So when you do your first deal like we're talking about, and you make $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, you take some of that money and you go educate yourself on, hopefully with me, but you go educate yourself on where you need help. And you let the business pay for your help or for your education. But in the beginning, you just got to do a couple deals. You got to get out there and do it. You don't need to know. You already know. You don't need to do that, right? You just go out there and do it. So why are you worried about what to say or do with a seller? You already know what to say or to do with a seller. It's the real estate between your ears that's all tangled up. You're listening to that little voice in your head tell you that there's secrets and you don't know how to do it.
Yep.
Now, here's the good news. Because I already know I'm going to have some guys on here. I see them in the chat, and they're going to ask these questions. So I'm going to rattle through a handful of things before we end off here, okay? Here's the good news. The landlord that you sign a lease with is going to use his lease. So you don't have to worry about drafting a lease because he's going to want his lease. So you already have a lease. You don't have to go figure out that paperwork. You don't have to worry about going and getting the document. He's already got it.
Right.
Right? Which means, number 2, all you need is an option agreement, an option to buy agreement. So number 3, if you go to eforms.com or type into Google lease option in your city and state, eForms will come up, but there's a few websites that you can get them for free. Now, they're not going to be my leases that are extremely airtight, but you don't need that in the beginning. To get going, you just do some deals, and then eventually you can get some money and you can buy my documents that are airtight. They're not going to, you're going to have to put some language in there about maintenance. Mine already has all that, but for the most part, you can go get that. Okay, so you go to eforms.com. You download the option agreement. Then you draft your work of art. You adjust it to what you promised the seller and what you promised the buyer, and you get it all prettied up. Right?
Yeah.
Then you go to a website called LegalShield.com. LegalShield.com. For $25 a month, they will review your option agreement and your lease and make sure it's legal for your state because they're in your state. So it costs you $25 per month, which, by the way, you can do this for your seller. And then when you draft another lease for your buyer, you could do it again for the same $25. So for $25 a month, you get legal advice to review your documents.
It's a sweet deal.
Then you sublease this thing doing the same thing. So you could use your landlord's lease and just assign it, or you can go get one from eForms and make your own. You can go get your options from eForms. They're all there. What is there, 52 states is there? 50 states? What is there? 50? How many are there? I don't even know.
50. There's 50. Don't make me question. There's 50 states, right?
50 states. Okay. So I always get that confused.
Wow.
So anyway, all the states in the United States are in eForms. They have these forms for them. I'm a real estate guy. I'm not a geographer.
I know. Now you've got me questioning, though. I feel like I have to Google that to make sure. Should know that. That's like kindergarten geography. Shame on both of us.
Thank you, John. John says powerful information all on a free podcast. So I don't think this is a podcast. I'm talking to my daughter, Jessie, John. That's why we're doing this today, okay? All right. But thank you. So now here's an important part. So the forms are taken care of now. So you don't have to tell me you can't do this because of the forms, because between eforms.com and Legal Shield, you can get all this done, okay? And I don't suggest you make a living with these forms, but at least get 2 or 3 or 4 deals done, get some cash in your pocket, and go buy real forms, okay? Now here's the important part. You go on to, as I call it, Flake Book, because they are flaky as hell. Right? And if you don't think they aren't, try to do some advertising with them, and you will see how flaky they really are. It's true. I'll actually take an ad that's been approved with them, and I'll duplicate the ad and change a phone number, and they'll reject that other ad. That's flaky. I'm sorry. Okay? What's that?
You would call it Flake Book.
Yeah, Flake Book. Yeah, well, how about YouTube? I call that ZooTube. You've ever been on YouTube? It's like a zoo. It's ZooTube over here. All right. Here's the important part. You go on to Flakebook Marketplace under the rent section, and you put in there the filter, your address, and single-family houses. So go on Flakebook Marketplace. You want me to say it the right way? You keep laughing.
No, it's hilarious. I'm forever going to call it Flake Book now for this reason.
That's a Ben Settle thing. So Flake Book, all right, Marketplace, you put in the filter your location in a 50-mile radius or 25-mile radius, wherever you are, and you search for single-family houses. And then what you do is you click on the house and you message them and say, would you be willing to sell to me for a year or 2 and then sell it? I mean, would you be willing to rent for a year or 2 and then sell it to me? Now, I'm giving away too much information here today, but we use a tool called Text Expander. I'm not going to explain it. Go check it out. It's textexpander.com. If you use Text Expander, which means you don't have to type the message in every message, you can reach a whole lot of people in 10 minutes. And like I put in my emails, if you're not on my email list, you should be, because all this stuff is in my emails. And being a little crude because of the guy that I am, you could do this in 10 minutes a day while you're sitting on a toilet.
Oh my God.
There's no excuse for you. You have, like your Jessie, you got 3 jobs and 2 kids and all this other stuff going on. She's got to sit on the toilet every day. I mean, come on. You could do this while you're going to the bathroom.
Please don't call people on the phone while you're going to the bathroom.
You're not going to call them. You're going to text them.
All right. Text. Yeah, we could do that.
So you're going to text them in Messenger or on Zillow. You can go on Zillow and do the same thing. And if you use the Text Expander tool, if you go to textexpander.com, it explains it. Just go to support on the top and go to videos, and it explains the whole thing. In about 45 minutes, you could be a genius at using everything. And I think it's like $30-something a year. Okay? So you could do this in 10 minutes a day. How many people do you think you could text in 10 minutes a day?
A lot.
Okay? So think about this for a moment. If you do this the way I've explained today, why do you think it's so hard to talk to people, to make deals, and bring in some extra dough?
It's really not. I mean, especially with the texting and on Facebook, I mean, going back 10 years, we used to do the cold calls, and it was a different game back then. And now it's so much easier, and it's manageable, and it really can be 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day. And in a couple of weeks, you're cashing checks. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, you could. In my email course, which is in the link in the chat, you could do it within 14 days. Okay. Now, remember, I started off with you get paid to do, not know, on Bill's Planner.
Mm-hmm.
So I just explained to you today that you already know how to sign a lease with somebody, with a landlord. And once you do that, you go find a person to sublease to. You go on Facebook or on Zillow, and you just put on there house for sale, no bank qualifying, and you will have plenty of leads. And you sublease that deal for the difference of. Now, what some people don't know is when you take an option consideration deposit, so you give your seller $100 to sign that option agreement. You're going to sell your rights, because what you're doing is you're buying the rights to sell that property. And because you're buying rights by giving paper money, which is $100 in this case, you can give them $10. You can give them $1 if you want. You just got to give them paper money. So you give the seller $100 like I do. You're buying rights to own that property. But also by doing that and getting him to sign it and you sign it, you're actually getting an equity share, a very small equity share in that property. But because you have an equity share in that property, you don't need a license to do this, because you technically own a piece of the property, a very small piece of the property, but you own it. Right? It's not that hard. It's just not that hard. The hard part is getting you to go do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
100%.
You get paid to do, not know.
Yep.
Okay. So here's my parting words. I'm going to do a contest, like I talked about in the beginning of the show. I plan to personally coach the top 3 winners. And I'm probably going to do this for more than just a couple weeks. But for now, it's just for a couple weeks, right? The next couple weeks. Whoever goes and visits the most amount of sellers. And what I'm going to do is, if you register with the link that's in your description right now, that's in the description of this podcast, if you go register, I am going to give you a 14-day crash course on how to do this. And I'm going to give you forms. I'm going to give you scripts. I'm going to give you inspection forms while you're in the house. I'm going to show you where to get the documents. I'm going to take you step by step by email coaching you. So every day you're going to get an email with a small task to do. Right? And then you'll do each task every day, and there's no reason why you can't win my contest. Once you win the contest, you'll have to send me a support ticket at flippinghouses4rookies.com. Let me know how many people you had, and I'm going to put you on this podcast, and I'm going to ask you questions like what happened in the house. And I'm going to coach you on how you can do better next time. Or if I think you have a deal, I'm going to structure the deal with you on this podcast and help you get that deal.
It's pretty awesome.
I don't know anybody offering that.
Nope.
And all of our listeners are going to be able to hear me helping that person so they can learn from it as well.
And I have to say, that's an awesome experience too. I have sat in on lots of coaching calls and just listening to other people's deals. Not only does it help you in terms of deal structuring, but you get to hear like how it really works and get to see that people are actually doing this stuff and it's actually working and people are actually making money. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So Monica says she has a question. I'm going to answer this question, and then we're going to boogie out here. I'm going to give you a link to where you can go sign up for the contest in case you're not in the chat. So Monica says, I'm trying to wait and just listen to you. Laugh out loud, but let me put it up here. But how do you reassure a landlord that you can actually buy their house later if you're not showing assets to be able to get a loan or buy outright? So Monica, you missed something. You should listen to this podcast again on the replay. Because, go ahead.
I was just going to say her name is Mona, not Monica.
Mona. Okay, Mona. Sorry about that. So here's what you should do, Mona. You should listen to this podcast again because there's 2 answers to that question. Number 1, you're marketing or talking to landlords that are looking to rent, not sell. You're going to call them up and say, would you be willing to rent and then sell to me? So the sell part is an added feature. So they aren't going to expect you to actually buy from them. They just want their rent. They want you to take care of the property and they want their rent. If you actually do get, and they'll sign the option because they'll be like, ha ha ha, if she comes along, yeah, I'll sell. Right? Because you got a one-upmanship other than a regular renter. The second thing is, if for some reason your buyer, who is actually going to go get a loan, doesn't qualify, you go back to the landlord and say, I couldn't get them qualified. Can we do it again? What do they really have to lose? I mean, you're going to give them, they're going to want 1 month security, so you'll give 1 month security, and there you go. So you'll go get a person again. What landlord would not want you to go? Jesse, you just told me this 2 days ago. What are you sick and tired about with your 2-family house? What were you dreading? What are you dreading right now? Because they're not paying.
They're not paying.
So what are you dreading?
What am I dreading?
You told me the other day.
Yeah, I'm dreading paying the bills and now all the, and
so if
dealing
you
with.
got to get them out of there. What did you tell me? And I know I'm not being specific enough.
Well, if I got to get them out there, it's going to cost me a lot of money, and then I got to go find new tenants. And to be honest, we went through a rigorous process. We must have interviewed 50 tenants to 50 groups to find 2 tenants. And, we say often in my work, you can't look in a crystal ball, right? You can't know. So I think that as a landlord, when somebody approaches you with a deal like this, it seems a whole heck of a lot better than somebody who.
So I come to you and say, I want to master lease your property. I'm going to pay you. You only deal with me.
Right.
I'm going to sublease. So the first thing that's going to happen is I'm going to tell you I'm going to go find the tenant. So you don't have to do that. So if the person that's in there for, say, 2-year lease doesn't perform, and you come back and say they didn't perform, I want to take them out and put another one in. Can I do that? He's going to be, or she's going to be like, yeah, you can go find me another one. I don't want to do that. I just want my checks. So it's not going to be that hard, Mona. So hopefully that answered your question. And then she said, you're great at simplifying. Thank you. You should always definitely do this format with your daughter. Makes fun and interactive. So she wants you to be on the podcast again.
Hey, I'll come back. I'll be back.
Good. All right, good. So thank you for listening. I think this podcast I've outdone myself. I think this whole program I've outdone myself. It's a new program I'm going to release, and I'm just being arrogant right now. So when you register for this, remember, when you register for this contest, I'm going to coach you for 14 days by email and all the necessary steps, right? So go to flippinghouses4rookies.com/contest to get in, okay? And if I get enough people, because I'm going to do it for 14 days, if I get enough people, I'll do it again. Okay? Because I want to help people. And Jesse, you know this of all people, I'm very sincere on wanting people that, I make my money with real estate. And I make enough of it. You see it. Yep. You've seen it for 20 years.
Yep.
And I've been in some real bad scrapes.
Yep.
Pull them out.
Yep.
Always been with real estate.
Yep.
Right? So I make my dough with real estate. Of course, my online stuff and my coaching, I make money for that, but it's nowhere near, it can't support me enough the way I live. So I do this as a hobby. My success is watching you do real estate deals, because just like Henry Ford said, I want every American to drive an affordable car. I would like to make every American have the ability to be able to buy real estate and make an extra $3,000, $5,000. You should look at real estate like this. I want to buy a new car. It's $20,000. How many houses do I have to buy and sell to pay for that car? 4, 3, 2, 1. With the rent-to-own method that we're talking about right now, you could go do 4 deals in a couple months and pay cash for that car.
Yep.
You could.
You really could.
But you have to follow the formula. You get paid to do, not know. Mona says she's got possible deals already. Yes, so go to flippinghouses4rookies.com, go to the support ticket, and I answer those every day. Okay, so just put them in the support ticket, and I will do everything I can to help you. Borderline not coaching, because realize my coaching clients pay me a lot of money to coach them, so I don't want to infringe on them by giving it to you for free, but I do help a lot. So just go put them in the support ticket, and if it goes over the line, I'll tell you it goes over the line. Usually it's like, I'll help you this time, but from now on you got to pay for coaching, okay? Which I don't do too often, but I think it's only fair to my coaching clients that are paying for me. Okay? All right, Jesse, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, of course.
For the help and the feedback. I know I do most of the talking, but it was awesome to have you here. And yes, I think we should have you back.
I would love to come back. It would be an honor.
Excellent. All right, guys, over and out. Don't forget to click on the link and get in the contest, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.